the city of San Francisco runs 30 minutes late as it pulls out of the station at Carlin, Nevada, on the evening of the 12th of August, 1939. The engineer, Ed Hecox, keenly senses the train's delay, but his intimate familiarity with the region, dating back to his days as a stagecoach driver in the 1880s, assures him that the vast expanse of Nevada ahead will grant ample opportunity to regain lost time. He pushes the city of San Francisco to a swift 90 miles per hour. Passengers, having just concluded dinner service, now savored post-meal drinks as they noticed the train making sharp turns. 2 beer bottles clinked and toppled on one curve, eliciting laughter. On another curve, a woman was playfully thrown from her seat into the aisle. At precisely 9:39 p.m., Ed glimpsed a solitary tumbleweed on the tracks. Passing over it, he felt an unsettling lurch. Desperately, he attempted to brake, but it was an exercise in futility. The leading engines, propelled by relentless momentum, slid off the rails, yet continued their forward journey across the bridge. Behind them, 5 cars detached and careened through the wooden track ties, plunging into the unforgiving riverbed below. In the days that follow, investigators will discover heavy tools discarded in the river and telltale signs of sabotage along the train tracks. More than 80 years later, the identities of those involved in one of America's most enigmatic train disasters remain elusive, and the case endures as an unsolved mystery. This is the case of Nevada's worst train derailment. The city of San Francisco, America's most opulent streamliner of its era, made its grand debut on the 2nd of January, 1938, at a staggering cost of approximately $2 million. This sleek marvel of engineering boasted deluxe sleepers and coaches adorned with an abundance of amenities. A true testament to technological brilliance, it was hailed as the largest, swiftest, most exquisite, robust, and lavish streamliner ever conceived. No expense had been spared, with the interior resplendent in Kelly green seats and signage adorned in glistening copper ink. Specially tinted Polaroid windows were fitted to gracefully filter out any troublesome glare. The city of San Francisco operated as a collaborative venture between the Southern Pacific, Union Pacific, and Chicago and Northwestern railroads, with the Nevada leg managed by Southern Pacific. This magnificent streamliner embarked on a journey from Chicago, Illinois, to Oakland, California, significantly trimming the previous travel time by a remarkable 19 hours. Beyond the basic ticket fare and Pullman fees, an extra charge was attached to the privilege of traveling aboard this luxurious streamliner. $5 for a chair car, $15 for Pullman open sections, and $22.50 for a roomette. On the day of this unfortunate tragedy, Chief Engineer Ed Hecox, a seasoned figure in Southern Pacific's ranks of locomotive engineers, assumes control of the throttle with a focused demeanor as the streamliner departs Carlin, Nevada, slightly behind schedule. Hecox, at the age of 65 and approaching retirement, boasts a remarkable 36-year tenure with Southern Pacific, accumulating over 1 million miles of experience. His reputation as the go-to engineer for special speed tests and demonstration runs precedes him, and he was entrusted with the city of San Francisco from its inception. He possesses an intimate knowledge of the terrain, viewing this vast Nevada expanse as an opportunity to make up for lost time. With determination, he accelerates the streamliner to a brisk 90 miles per hour. In the dining car, dinner service concludes, and passengers unwind with post-meal drinks. They casually observe the train navigating the curves with slightly more vigor since departing Carlin. Their conversations peppered with laughter as 2 beer bottles clatter to the floor during one turn, and on another, a woman playfully tumbles into the aisle. Yet, at precisely 9:33 p.m., as they approach bridge number 4, spanning the Humboldt River Gorge, Hecox's discerning eye spots a solitary tumbleweed resting on the left rail. That attracted my attention, as all weeds do, he testified at a 1941 civil trial. But when I struck the tumbleweed, I felt a jar. Hecox responds swiftly, attempting to engage the brakes, but time proves unforgiving. The city of San Francisco begins to derail. The leading engines, driven by unyielding momentum, veer off the rails, yet astonishingly manage to traverse the bridge. Trailing behind, 5 cars decouple from the train. The Presidio, a coffee shop kitchen car, Mission Dolores, a dining car, Embarcadero, a lounge car, and the sleepers Twin Peaks and Chinatown descend earthward, plummeting through the wooden track ties into the unforgiving riverbed below. In the aftermath, 24 passengers and crew members lie lifeless, and many more grievously injured. Survivors navigate the darkened tableau, passing fragments torn by the collision. Amidst the inky blackness, stewardess Thelma Ristvedt, her face marred by blood from a head injury, dutifully tends to passengers until she succumbs to unconsciousness. In the enveloping darkness, survivors resort to igniting sections of the train for a flicker of light. But help is miles away. Above, Hecox begins a sprint towards the nearest town. The vast expanse between his train and that distant town offers nothing. No telephones, no signs of life. Finally arriving at Harney, he urgently employs a telephone to notify the authorities. Volunteers from the town swiftly rally to Hecox's call, following him on the return journey to the crash site. Nearly all of the 170-plus individuals aboard the train have sustained injuries. One of the passengers, a doctor by profession, takes charge of triaging the wounded. It is going to be a long and arduous night, as a rescue train is not slated to arrive until the following morning. The rescue train brought along investigators from Southern Pacific, local law enforcement, and the FBI. Nevertheless, the site of the incident had already been heavily disturbed, with locals, both helpful and nosy, trampling over every inch of it. Some even made off with pieces of the train and tracks as souvenirs. It was an irrevocably muddled scene. Evidence of deliberate sabotage surfaced swiftly. A 30-foot stretch of the track had its spikes pulled out, allowing it to be bent inward. The tumbleweed that Hecox had spotted was ingeniously tethered to the track to obscure the gap. The area was cunningly camouflaged with a coat of brown paint, a desperate attempt to conceal the sabotage from unsuspecting eyes. Teams of divers were dispatched to comb the riverbed for any remaining clues, and they stumbled upon some very peculiar tools. Dan O'Connell, Southern Pacific's chief special agent from San Francisco, estimated that the job would have required 90 pounds of tools, carried from a highway over a mile away, and several hours of work. The very same tools found discarded in the river. One investigator endeavored to reenact the task and concluded that at least 4 hefty tools were needed. Furthermore, whoever carried out this operation had to shift a 1,500-pound rail, moving it 5 inches from its original position, and then securing it with spikes. This was the handiwork of a minimum of 2 resolute, physically capable individuals, perhaps possessing some knowledge of rail operations. However, instead of pursuing this promising lead, detectives proceeded to round up the usual suspects, men rendered homeless by the Great Depression. The investigators initially focused their attention on a suspicious individual observed loitering near the train tracks in the hours leading up to the incident. Witnesses insisted that this enigmatic man had no ears. Consequently, they brought in Bob Ledouceur, a 35-year-old man missing 1 ear, for questioning. He also happened to be lacking half a foot, making it highly improbable for him to be involved in the laborious task of derailing a train. Nevertheless, Douceur provided an alibi that placed him 300 miles away on the night of the incident, prompting investigators to promptly release him. With no suspects in custody, investigators were dispatched to comb through every hobo jungle across California, Utah, and Nevada. This approach was likely influenced, at least in part, by Southern Pacific President A.D. McDonald, who confidently asserted to the media that a lone individual with a diseased brain had wreaked havoc upon his train. In the end, a staggering 93,000 individuals were interviewed by diligent detectives. Despite an initially offered reward of $5,000, later increased to $10,000, no breakthroughs materialized. After the outbreak of World War II, the case was moved off the active status docket. Apart from a civil suit in the 1940s that yielded compensation for some injured passengers, the survivors of the city of San Francisco found no further justice for the crime. However, Southern Pacific has faced well-deserved criticism for their handling of the entire investigation. Instead of taking responsibility, the company resorted to accusing newspapers of sharing photographs taken from angles that exaggerated the extent of the damage. In response, one reporter aptly remarked, "God knows, it would have been impossible to make it look worse than it was." Even the compensation resulting from a civil lawsuit brought harsh judgment upon Southern Pacific. F.S. Foote Jr., who endured a litany of injuries, including a broken jaw and sternum, a punctured lung, internal hemorrhaging, a concussion, and cracked ribs, received a mere $7,500 as compensation, barely enough to cover his hospital bills. He told newspapers that Southern Pacific also provided him with a $5 reimbursement, which covered the additional fare he had paid to upgrade to the city of San Francisco. The letter accompanying his $5 check read, "While technically a refund of only the value of the unused portion of the ticket would be in order, we are refunding the full amount of the extra fare due to the interruption to our service. Trust that we shall have the pleasure of serving you in the future." This incident wouldn't mark the final time Southern Pacific became embroiled in a train derailment. In fact, in 1995, a chillingly similar derailment occurred in Arizona, over 55 years after the city of San Francisco incident in Nevada. And remarkably, it unfolded under nearly identical circumstances. In 1995, Southern Pacific Train Line, a publication by the Southern Pacific Historical and Technical Society, featured a story titled Tragedy at Harney, recounting the fateful streamliner wreck. Just a week later, tragedy struck again when Amtrak's Sunset Limited passenger train, en route from Miami to Los Angeles, derailed in the Arizona desert, resulting in the loss of one crew member's life. The uncanny resemblance between this wreck and the one that befell the city of San Francisco back in 1939 sent shivers down spines. A westbound train, navigating through the desert under the cloak of night, found its tracks cunningly sabotaged, bent inwards as it approached a bridge, propelling the train into a riverbed. At first glance, it appeared as though someone had meticulously recreated the earlier crime, possibly inspired by the article in Southern Pacific Train Line. Investigators entertained this eerie possibility. The author of the article was summoned for questioning, but no conclusive link could be established. To this day, the case remains unsolved, shrouded in mystery. This case is filled with so many twists and turns that it's tough to arrive at any clear theories about who might be behind this complicated crime. Nevertheless, people can't help but speculate. One of the most talked about theories suggests that workers from the rival Western Pacific Railroad might have sabotaged the tracks that night. This theory holds some weight because these workers would know how train tracks function. It's also true that after the crash, Western Pacific Railroad had a lot to gain, as they became the only railroad in use for several months. However, investigators didn't find this theory very likely. Instead, they were busy chasing homeless individuals across neighboring states. Whoever might have been responsible left behind a mystery that's even more puzzling due to the 1995 derailment of Amtrak's Sunset Limited, which had eerie similarities. What adds to the enigma is that in both cases, no suspect was identified and no one was arrested. It's surprising that even in this day and age, someone could tamper with train tracks and get away with it without ever being caught. Thank you for joining me as we uncovered another mysterious case. I really appreciate you watching till the end. These videos take a lot of time to make, so I would appreciate it if you could leave a like. Maybe even comment about a potential case I should cover next. And if you enjoyed this video, do be sure to subscribe. If you want more, check out the mystery of the ghost ship Ses Orang Medan, or the perplexing death at the South Pole. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time with another mystery.